Welcome back, everyone. In our previous unit, we mastered the insider's compass, the language and architecture of the instrument itself. But today, we need to address a hard, inescapable truth that many researchers learn far too late. Remember our mantra from Module 1-1? Garbage in equals garbage out. Actually, the secret that separates top-tier industry pros from average operators is where they place their focus. An average operator looks at the mass spectrometer. They think the magic happens inside that vacuum. But the specialist looks at the vial in their hand. In this session, we are going to demystify what happens before you press start. We are building the foundation of truth. Imagine this. You've just spent 48 hours straight on a high-end instrument. You've optimized every voltage, every gas flow. But when the data comes out, it's a mess. The peaks are buried in noise, and your reproducibility is non-existent. You've wasted 2 days of expensive instrument time, and more importantly, your professional credibility is on the line. Why? It happened because you fell into the technician's trap. You saw sample preparation as a pre-step, a boring chore. But here is the specialist's perspective. Sample preparation is not a pre-step. It is an integral part of the measurement itself. Today, we master the roadmap to ensure these failures never reach your detector. Actually, the difference between a pro and an amateur is understanding that sample preparation is the foundation of truth. A technician rushes through the manual steps, eager to just push the buttons. But a specialist architects the extraction based on the specific chemistry of the analyte. They understand that if you get the foundation wrong, the most sophisticated instrument in the world cannot save your data. We are going to stop being victims of our samples and start being the architects of our outcomes. In the high-end industry, this mindset shift is what determines your value generator status. Let's look at the strategic sequence of a perfect sample. No matter what you are analyzing, pesticides in soil or drugs in plasma, the logical architecture of your work remains identical. We call this the universal roadmap. It is a 4-phase journey designed to take a chaotic, real-world sample and turn it into a refined signal. First, homogenization. If this fails, nothing else matters. Second, extraction, the critical moment of transfer. Third, purification, acting as a bouncer at a club, kicking out the interfering components like salts. Finally, concentration, the volume knob. Each step builds on the last. If you are sloppy at step 1, step 4 cannot save you. Let's look at the soup principle of homogenization. Homogenization is where you transform complex material into a uniform state. Think of it this way. You are a chef judging a giant pot of soup. You can't do that by only tasting the teaspoon of salt that's settled at the bottom. If you do, your report will say the soup is inedible, even if the rest is perfect. In the lab, if your sample isn't representative, your data is a lie before you even turn on the machine. Whether using bead beating or ultrasonic energy, the goal is uniformity. In the industry, if you can't prove the sample was uniform, your results won't stand up to an audit. If it isn't uniform, it isn't the truth. Once you have a uniform sample, we move to step 2, extraction. This is arguably the most strategic moment in the roadmap. I think of this as pulling gold away from gravel. Your target molecules are currently buried in a matrix of proteins and lipids. Extraction is the act of transfer. We convince our target molecules to leave their messy home and move into a clean, controlled solvent. But here is the secret. Extraction is always a game of trade-offs. You cannot have everything. A technician simply follows a manual. A specialist architects the extraction based on the specific polarity, volatility, and stability of the analyte. You are performing a strategic chemical divorce. This table is one of the most important slides in the course. It's the matrix of strategic trade-offs. A specialist moves from method-driven to problem-driven thinking. An amateur says, I always use this method because it's what we do. A pro says, I need high sensitivity, therefore I must prioritize cleanliness over speed. Look at the consequences. If you want high recovery, you will likely have more matrix effects. If you want a clean extract, you must accept lower recovery. The difference is the ability to justify these choices. You are managing a chemical budget, deciding which cost you are willing to pay for the data you need. Even after extraction, you might have uninvited guests. This brings us to step 3, purification or cleanup. Mass spec is sensitive but has a weakness. Matrix components like salts and detergents are signal killers. Think of the ionization source as a very small, exclusive club. There is only so much charge to go around. If your sample is full of salts and lipids, they crowd the entrance. They compete for charge and almost always win. This leads to ion suppression, where your target signal simply disappears. Purification is the process of acting as a bouncer, kicking out the noise so the machine can see the truth. We purify to let our analytes breathe. The final step is concentration. If step 3 was about clarity, step 4 is about volume. Often, the truth is hidden at incredibly low levels, parts per billion or trillion. Even with a clean sample, the instrument might not have enough signal. Concentration is our way of turning up the volume. By evaporating the solvent and reconstituting analytes in a smaller volume, we are essentially amplifying the signal. But a specialist knows the dangers here. Overconcentrating can lead to molecules sticking to vial walls or degrading under heat. You are carefully tuning the presentation of the sample to match the dynamic range of your detector. You ensure the signal is loud and undeniable. Let's talk reality. Why go through all this trouble? Is it just for pretty peaks? No. Sample prep controls what enters the MS, what suppresses signal, and, the one people forget, what damages your instrument. Pro-level sample prep is an insurance policy for your career. If you inject a sample full of non-volatile salts, you aren't just ruining your data, you are contaminating $1 million machine. Imagine reviewing a colleague's plan who skipped purification. As a specialist, you don't just say, it's bad. You explain the physics. Without purification, salts will deposit on the source, suppress our targets, and force a 24-hour shutdown for cleaning. That is how a specialist speaks. We have covered a lot of ground. You've gone from a confused operator to holding the roadmap. We've mapped the roadmap. Homogenization for representativeness, extraction for transfer, purification for clarity, and concentration for sensitivity. But remember the most important takeaway. There is no universal protocol. In many labs, people search for the one protocol to rule them all. That is a technician's dream. The reality is that every matrix, plasma, soil, food, requires a specialist touch. You now understand the logic of why we do what we do. You are no longer just prepping samples. You are designing a measurement. Logic is half the battle. Physics is the next. You've mastered the roadmap. You understand the why. But a specialist also needs to master the how. Our next unit is where we get physical. Join me in Module 2-2, Physical Domination. We are going to move from the theory of the roadmap to the practice of the first step. We are going to dive deep into selecting specific homogenization methods. We'll look at mechanical blenders, ultrasonic probes, and high-speed bead beaters. We'll learn how to choose the right energy level to ensure perfect sample uniformity in any matrix, no matter how tough or difficult the sample is. If step 1 fails, the rest of the roadmap collapses. I'll see you in Module 2-2,